Hi, today's the day where I'm going to try and get the engine fired up. I need to do a few things before we can actually just turn the key and see whether it actually works. The first is I need to just be mindful that we're dealing with petrol, highly inflammable, so I've got my fire extinguisher here just in case. I've got my laptop here so I can monitor all the sensor data coming from the ECM. And I still have to wire in the fuel pump and the fuel sender and then put fuel into the tank. So let's see how that goes. Let's put some gas into the tank. So I've got 5 gallons here, which should be more than enough initially. So hopefully we'll see that the fuel gauge goes up, we'll hear the fuel pump go on, and hopefully it will pressurize the fuel system. Okay, we've got over half a tank of gas. I'm just going to put on my makeshift fuel cap, which is disguised as a piece of masking tape. But at least it will prevent dust or particles getting into the fuel. So let's just put that on there. The tank has a breather, so this is not going to cause any issues. So let's see if we can get the fuel gauge working. Let's turn on the ignition. Okay, the fuel gauge does work, it's climbing. The fuel pump did prime. It's all looking good. So I cleared room by the exhaust. It's going to be, if it does start, it'll be very loud. There's no muffler on it yet. I moved the computer out of the way, so if there's any heat, it won't be affected. The bike, I've confirmed the ECM thinks the bike's in neutral, and I believe that to be true. The fuel system's all wired up. Okay, let's see if it works. Okay, that doesn't appear to be doing the trick. So let's disconnect. Turn up the ignition. Now, when I undo that fuel line, if it's pressurized, it's going to throw fuel everywhere. So I better get a couple of cloths to clean it off. I suspect that if it is pressurized, then I've got fuel in there. A bit more room to... Well, it looks pretty dry. Let's just turn on the ignition. Yeah, I suspect the pump is wired in backwards. So let's just reverse the wires and see if I can get some fuel out of the pump. I've reversed the polarity on the fuel pump. Let's just see what happens now. That looks like fuel coming out. Great. So now I can just plumb it back in and see if the motor starts. See what happens. Let's turn the ignition on. Okay, the fuel pump has primed the system. Let's get the computer going. Start. So not seeing much at all. Okay, I've been sleuthing around and I took the air filter off. I wanted to see if there was any fuel being injected into the cylinders and whether the problem was with the spark. There's no fuel being injected into the engine, which is good in its own way. What I have noticed is that I've got a tip-over sensor connector there that is just hanging in the air. What I'm going to do now is that I'm going to just short that out to make sure, to make it look like the bike is upright, and then we'll see if we can start it now. It wasn't the tip-over sensor. That looks like it's been disabled in the ECU. So now what I'm going to do is check to see whether I've got any spark. So I've taken a plug out, I've got the coil pack connected, and let's see if we can see. Okay, so we do have spark. So it seems that we don't have fuel. This is the second day of trying to get the engine started. Yesterday didn't have much luck. I managed to, I think the coils are working fine. The engine obviously cranks, but it doesn't look like I'm getting any fuel into the cylinders. So today I'm going to first of all see if I've got spark, then with some starter fluid the motor should actually turn, fire. So that at least tells me that the motor is fine. Secondly, then I need to track down why the injectors aren't firing. I've done a lot of research. I've also reached out to the people on Hayabusa.org who suggested that I look at the fuel pressure going into the engine. I don't have a fuel pressure gauge at the moment. That's something I'll be looking at getting during the week. But I can check the injectors. I checked the secondary injectors, but they're not used at low RPM. So there is voltage on them. I'll check the primary injectors as well. And then I'll also check to see, using my little oscilloscope, whether the ECM is actually providing any pulses to the primary injectors. After that, I'll have to think again. So let's see how we go. Okay, now I'm going to see if I can get the car started on starter fluid. So I'll give it a bit of throttle, get the stray ready. Okay, the engine starts, so we've just got problems with the electrics. Okay, I've changed over the throttle body. I put the original throttle body back onto the engine. I originally replaced it with one I got from a friend, which came from a 0 mile engine. I'm having problems with it. I thought I'll just swap it over since I'm grasping at straws. So let's see if we get any joy with that. So let's turn on the ignition. Wow, we've got oil pressure. We haven't got a muffler on, which is why it sounds so loud, but it revs, it sounds glorious. The wiring works. Taking the cheap way out by using a bike loom for this car has paid off. It sounds incredible. So now the work continues to button everything up and get the car going. Oh, I'm so thrilled. That's great. That was a really productive weekend. From the time when I said that I would attempt to get the engine running, I didn't anticipate all the issues that I had, but I learnt so much actually tackling the issues one by one. I think I misspoke in the last segment. I said I replaced the throttle bodies. That's not true. I replaced the fuel rail and the injectors, and that was all it took to get the engine running. So it seems like that maybe the injectors were blocked or there was a blockage in the fuel rail. but whatever it is, I'll go and investigate in the next few days. So what's next? I think I have to turn it into a car. I've got the engine running, I have to tidy up the wiring, button all that up, and then start adding panels, putting all the things on that makes the car the car. So thanks for watching, and see you next episode.